Welcome to Podcast Awesome, where we chat about icons, design, tech, business, and nerdery with members of the Font Awesome team.
Font Awesome, go make something awesome. Font Awesome, go make something awesome.
In this podcast, I catch up with Font Awesome co-founder Travis Chase and the newest member of the team, Cory LaViska, the creator of the web components library Shoelace. We chat about how the partnership between Shoelace and Font Awesome came about, and how the worlds of design systems, web components, and icons intersect.
Go make something awesome. Font Awesome, go make something awesome. Font Awesome, go make something awesome.
Well, Cory, you're the boss of Shoelace. We're excited to have you on Podcast Awesome. And it sounds like this partnership between Shoelace and Font Awesome was maybe a long time coming, maybe? You guys have been introduced to one another for a while. Travis, do you have a story about when you got to know Cory?
Yeah, getting to know Cory is more of a recent thing, but following Shoelace, the project, kind of kept track of it off and on, looking at, thinking through design systems components, looking at when we first started Font Awesome, we used Bootstrap as kind of our design language, design system. And then we messed around with tachyons, and then we started doing some of our own stuff. But back in the day would kind of keep track of Shoelace just because it was kind of, and I'll let Cory tell the story of Shoelace, but, you know, for me, it was kind of like Bootstrap ++, one of the very first editions, and then following on, keeping track. And I think with my RSS reader, you know, a blog post came up where he talked about switching from stencil to lit. And we had been thinking about web components for a while and actually had one built in stencil. It was our icon chooser that Mike built. And I was kind of like, interesting. I want to know, like, because we ran into some different things with our icon chooser with stencil, and I was just kind of like, okay, cool. Is there something that he ran into that we saw, you know, and is it something I need to think about, that kind of thing? And so, you know, I blog post, and I was like, oh wait, that's from the guy that does Shoelace. And then I went and I was like, okay, what's been happening with Shoelace recently? And it's like, oh, well, now it's a web component library. And so that's kind of where it's like, you know, this is really interesting, you know, because this is kind of what internally we've been thinking about and mulling over and seeing where that plays with what we're doing, just even for fontawesome.com or the apps we're building, but also things that maybe pairs well with designer and developers we already talked to that use our great tools.
Right. Yeah. So Cory, glad to have you here and to meet you here at your first Snuggle. First of all, how was the Snuggle? Did you think maybe you were joining a cult initially? We called it our biannual meetup is called the Snuggle. What's your first impression?
I mean, you saw the shirt I showed up in, and it was the Snuggle Bear, and it said the Snuggle is real.
Proving once again that Snuggle is the best choice, because there's a lot of softness in a little snuggle.
I'm all in on this.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Everyone I talk about the Snuggle to, they're like, the what? It's so I think I share the same awkwardness or the ambition to make people feel awkward when we talk about it.
That's
as
right.
Travis and Dave.
Yeah.
But actually, I kind of want to rewind and talk about, you said, oh, Shoelace, and now it's a web component library. So you knew of Shoelace before 2.0.
Version 1, or whatever version it was under version, that early Shoelace that was kind of like, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm impressed. I did not have any awareness of that.
Yep.
Shoelace didn't really pick up with popularity until 2.0 when it was web component based. So I guess for those not aware, it initially was sort of a slimmed down version of Bootstrap. And the idea was Bootstrap was primarily served over CDN, and a lot of users would just import bootstrap.js and .css and they wouldn't customize it. And so my goal was, number one, I want something a little simpler and slimmer, and I wanted to explore custom properties as a way of importing the library over the CDN, but still being able to customize everything as much as possible. And so that's where it actually started. And of course, the natural pivot to leaning on platform things as web components became more of a thing, and browsers started supporting them. That's where Shoelace 2.0 came out. So I'm actually very impressed that you knew about Shoelace before.
That's 2.0. Why I kind of called it Bootstrap++. Not that it had more, but it did interesting like things that we ran into. I mean, Bootstrap was a great library, is a great library for a lot of people. And it grew a lot, with some of the things that, slimming it down, giving you more choice, especially around the things you were trying to do that I remember. And again, this has been a few years, but the things you were trying to do around theming, which we kind of always, we would take, a lot of times Bootstrap people would take it, and the complaint wind up being like, well, everything looks like Bootstrap, because they just
Bootstrap syndrome.
Yeah, they just kind of took the default theme. And so we spent a lot of time and effort theming Bootstrap. So you can look at Font Awesome and it doesn't look like Bootstrap, but it is Bootstrap that's running. And so it's like, okay, is there a library like this that makes this process a little bit easier? Because we would do quite a bit of work around customizing the CSS or overriding. Well, we used the SAS so that we could override a lot of the stuff and make it look different. I was like, okay. And I cannot even tell you what Google foo I did to wind up on that first version of Shoelace. And so it's like, and I could tell it was newish. And so it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to kind of keep an eye on this a little bit and see kind of where it goes. And then we kind of pivoted away from Bootstrap. And didn't really think about it for a while. And then when we got back into the web component kind of world, and we were using Stencil, like I said before, I found this this article, and I was like, oh, this is really well written, really compelling, really well measured, is why Cory switched from Stencil to Lit. And I was like, okay, this is really good. And then I was like, that name, and then I don't know if there was a link to Shoelace, or maybe I went to your site and whatever. Anyway, it was like, oh, that's a Shoelace guy.
Shoelace guy.
Yep, and here he is. So for me, because I'm not a technical first person, you guys are speaking a few steps, several steps ahead of me. So for those that maybe aren't technically minded, can you talk a little bit about what web components is, and maybe how that complements or how it's different than, say, design systems? How does that all fit together?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we could probably talk for hours about this, but at a high level, web components are really a collection of web platform APIs that are built right into the browser, and they let you build basically custom HTML elements. They solve a lot of problems that component models within frameworks were trying to solve over the years, but now we have a native way to do that. In terms of design systems, I think right now, web components are a great fit for design systems. You have a lot of companies building design systems in React or Angular or whatever their framework of the week is, and then they kind of lock their teams into using these components. And the problem there is that not every team wants to use those frameworks, and so web components sort of let you build your, can I say Lego bricks? They sort of let you build Lego brick components that you can then assemble on top of to build bigger and better things, and with all the consistency and whatnot. And the nice thing about them is you can plug these into any framework, and things just work. And so you can even pull your framework out later and continue using the same UI components. And to me, that's just brilliant. So while web component uses aren't limited to design systems, I find that they're a really solid fit for them today.
Mm-hmm. So I've heard before, a design system, maybe like a word picture, and let me know if this is on the money or not. Specifically, large organizations that maybe are building a lot of sites, they want to have consistency for their brand, like the look and feel and sort of function of their websites. And you could maybe liken it to, and this is where you can tell me if I'm wrong, if, I don't know, a real estate development company builds like a housing development, and the houses are pretty similar, but you would maybe have customizable options like a chef's kitchen or something like that, or an additional bedroom or something like that. And it gives you sort of a template and a map and an architecture for how these sites work. i.e. houses. Does that kind of get at it, or is it more complex than that?
I mean, kind of, right? A design system is really not just components. It's really more guidelines and specifications built to a brand's standards. Like, this is how we want to represent ourselves, everything from your color all the way down to, things like your buttons and patterns, layouts. It's all inclusive into a design system. So,
yeah, I would say with your analogy, design systems, gives, like, again, like they're doing a whole development and they want their houses, similar, and they're all within specification, but then they have options for changing, right? That's where you want maybe your design system customizability, right? Where you can change a few options and get something a little bit different, but still on brand. And yeah, with where web components play really well with a design system is they can, if built a correct way, you can able to change the look and feel of those components, but they behave the same, right? So your foundation is the same. You don't have to worry about, is this button going to do something different now? Or do I have to hook into this event system a little bit different now? No, it's standard. It's there. It operates the same. I can make it look a little bit different, or maybe I can move it around here or whatever. But it's gonna still feel like what you're doing, and you can easily make it stay on brand. The really nice thing too, though, is that same button can be then taken to a different development with a different look and feel or layout or whatever, and you can change the look and feel, but the button still works, right? And you don't have to worry about the underlying technology. So when he mentions like React, Vue, Angular, they're trying to solve these same problems, and we're there first. And I think it probably helped kind of foster the need for a web standard or platform browser standard version of the same thing. Is now you can, with web components, take that same button and go around in any kind of environment that's browser based and use it, and it'll behave the exact same way. You don't have to worry about the underlying SPA framework architecture, or like whether you're using, Ruby on the back end or Elixir on the back end or PHP on the back end. It doesn't matter, because ideally you're just shipping HTML, and the HTML has been standard since the web. Right? Since we started using browsers, it's just HTML. It's just CSS. It's just a bit of JavaScript, right? And that's all standard-based stuff that then you can rely on. And that's what makes it, pretty compelling.
Yeah, and I would imagine there's you're taking a ton of headache and wasted time away from teams that have maybe built in a different framework, and everybody can play nice. I'd imagine if somebody's like building something in a different framework from somebody else, they can sort of stick with what they know and what they do well, and they're going to build something together that works well and is consistent.
Yeah, the portability is, when you're in development, sometimes you get to choose what tools you get. Sometimes, you're coming to a new company or a new team or whatever, and they already have what they know, and they've, their customers don't care what tools they use. They just want, them to solve their problems. Right. And so, they already have tools. They already know tools. And so, you can start out with web components, and you can build one, and multi-teams can use it with different languages, right? And then you can start building more, and you don't have to move all at once. You can move component by component, and that way you can build a library that everybody can use no matter what stack they're on or chosen or know or whatever. You don't have to, be super religious about it, right? It's like, if you like React, you like React. If you like Vue, you like Vue. But if they both need a color picker, right? There are color pickers on those things, but maybe you want to have a certain set of swatches, all this kind of stuff. Well, instead of configuring that both for both systems, you can build one web components, and now they both can use it, and it stays on brand. It stays on the swatches that are allowed, whatever.
So this is a pretty new partnership so far. So there's probably been lots of talk about plans for the future. Is there anything that you guys can talk about kind of what you got up your sleeve or what you're hoping for? You're not committing to anything, by the way, that we will, ship something particular, but are there chats that you're having about how Font Awesome and Shoelace will start working together and what the hopes are for the future? Absolutely.
So how Font Awesome and Shoelace have partnered up here is what we were doing with Font Awesome, and a lot of the challenges we were having internally just building products and projects. Is there a way that we can make designers and developers' lives easier. That's really the focus of Font Awesome. Can we give you a great product, remove pain, remove extra overhead? Because it's a hard job. Designers and developers have really hard jobs because, they said it's cliche, but it's true. The internet is eating the world, and there's a lot of companies. They have lots of projects they want to do. They have a lot of problems they want to solve for people. And it's anytime you can take just a little bit of pain away, and that's kind of what Font Awesome did. It gave you great icons on great tech. You could just not, you don't have to think about it. It's like, you know what? I need some great icons. And as we add more and more styles, right? So you can go grab what you need, put it in there. It just works. And you can get on the business of building whatever it is you're tasked to build. And we were thinking along the same lines of what else could we do with designers and developers? And we were kind of solving these problems internal. And we were like, okay, can we build a really interesting system that's HTML forward, CSS forward, standards forward, that you could easily theme, you could easily change the look and feel, make sure, whatever visual design library or aesthetic you're looking for, that it would support that, and we were using that internal and growing that internal and doing the FA icon chooser and kind of playing around with web components and seeing kind of where that world was. Cause it changes rapidly. I mean, it's a standard, but more things are coming and it's really exciting. That really started piquing my interest personally, like, what could we do around web components? What could we build a design language around this kind of thing? Does this fit where we're trying to go? And that article just kind of kicked off this storm of activity where it's like, I started talking to Dave, about like, man, I wonder if this is the way to do something. And then it's kind of like, man, Shoelace is doing this. This is really cool. Mm-hmm. Like this really looks like something we could either use or, educate ourselves on, because it's open source and that's the beauty of open source. It's like, I can go look and say, oh, that's cool. That's how you solve that problem. Maybe I'd solve it a little differently. I don't know. Maybe we build our own, whatever. And then Dave's like, hey, why don't we just reach out and have a conversation? Let's just talk to him. And I'm like, that's where Dave's great. That's where Dave's great, where I'm not. He's like, hey, let's just talk to this person. Yeah. And before long, we're talking, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. It's like, there's something here. And so on your question of, where this fits with Font Awesome for our side, we believe in web standards. Mm-hmm. We believe in HTML forward, CSS forward, JS forward. We believe in all this stuff. And we want to make that easier for designers and developers so they can build great software. And what that looks like, we can tease out maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's still new. Yeah.
Yeah. But we definitely have thoughts. We definitely have ideas of how we can have a lot of fun and provide a lot of really good tooling for designers and developers to make their jobs easier. And that's kind of where we're going with Shoelace. It's taking Shoelace, the great thing that Shoelace is now, and just adding some more.
Making it greater.
Plussing it.
You can always add more sprinkles.
Yes, you can always add more sprinkles.
Making it awesomer. Well, it sounds like it's right in the ballpark of maybe even solving internal problems for Font Awesome too. Like,
absolutely.
Have you guys made use of this stuff and seen sort of on the ground how it's making things easier for our team internally?
Yeah, actually, it was a great story. Jory, he was thinking, because a lot of this motion internally and all this kind of stuff. He's like, I wonder if I can just put a little, he's mainly design, icon design, that kind of stuff. He's like, I wonder if I can just put a little something together. And with the documentation, grab some of the components, use the handy dandy CDN link and just started slinging a little bit of HTML, and there it is.
That's awesome.
And you can just start using it. It's really compelling.
Yeah. CDN is where it's at.
Yeah.
I actually remember very well the day that, you guys obviously were thinking about stuff and talking about stuff before this ever happened, but I remember the day it sort of went down for me, and it started with me. I was at home at work, and I see this like dunk on Twitter, and it was like, oh, Dave Gandy followed you. And I was like, oh, I totally know that guy. In fact, I've been using Bootstrap for years, and Font Awesome was pretty much the official Bootstrap icon library. And then a few minutes later, direct message from Dave. And so, and I think a few hours later, maybe even an hour or so later, I was on my porch outside talking to him. And then what was it, like a few weeks later, if that. I was in Arkansas having the time of my life with like what felt like a new family. And awesome. This is actually my third trip out here. Yeah. And it's pretty awesome, and you guys have just been incredible. So I just that was sort of a life-changing moment for me, a career-changing moment for sure, going from a very, very big company with hundreds of thousands of people to 18. And I can tell you, I'm not good with remembering names, but on day one, this is how much of a family it actually feels like. You gave a presentation,
and I was counting. You had everybody's name. So I don't know.
I did Monday morning. I got there Sunday night. Met probably about half of the folks at dinner that night. And then by Monday morning, I gave the presentation, went around the room, and I had everyone's name memorized, which for me felt like impossible.
Nice work.
I have a question for Cory.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't know the answer. Or maybe I did. I forget a lot. I'm getting old. But how did you get into web components? Like what... Shoelace before wasn't, Shoelace 2 is, and you even went through technologies even on the web component front. So when did that spark hit, or when did that, what's that story?
That's kind of goes back to the early to mid 2000s when I got into web development, and I just somehow fell into the A-list apart group of, hey, web standards are awesome. And that was probably from the pain of browsers being so different, and but fast forward to web components, I was pretty big on Bootstrap, starting with 2 and 3, I think, and frameworks started becoming front end frameworks started becoming more ubiquitous, and we started building components and stuff. And I was like, this is cool. The component paradigm is really useful. It just made a lot of sense. But then I get bit by the framework bug, and I'm not going to say which framework because I'm not throwing anyone under the bus here, but suffice to say, I still have an app in production that's like in an old version of a framework because it was just too painful to update. And not only that, the component library that I used in that framework also had its own version increase. When the framework major versioned, the component library effectively forked. And so not only did I have to upgrade a big framework, but I had to upgrade every component in this component library. And I was just pulling my hair out, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. And that's sort of the light that went off. Like, how can we have components that we don't need to do this for? And so, at the time, web components were still new. There was still a lot of questions. They had this V0 version that sort of got reworked into, and that's kind of rare for a standard. When they standardize things, they sort of just pick them up and run with them. But web components went through sort of a shaky start. And then it stabilized, and then it got really good, and it keeps getting better and better and better. And it was at the point where we realized IE11 was kind of dying because there was not a lot of new stuff going into that. So web components and IE11 were just not a lot of fun. But it was right at that convergence of, hey, we actually have modern browsers with modern APIs. Let's just start tinkering. And it was a bit bleeding edge because not a lot of people were doing it. But I think we're showing right now with as of a couple of years ago, 18% or more of every page load tracked by Chrome uses a custom element. And that's just unheard of. Like 5-6 years ago, it was probably in the 1%. And now they're just everywhere. And they keep proving themselves over and over and over.
What's cool, too, is the philosophy of these two companies coming together. You guys both... you have a love for the open source community, and you're both Font Awesome started to solve a problem. You and Dave were working together, and Dave couldn't get these icons to work that he wanted, the way that he wanted, and like, we have to figure out a way to fix this. And you're actually solving a problem for yourself that resonates with other people, and I love how it's like love for open source, love for wanting to serve the community of people building stuff. So it makes great sense that you guys would come together. And so I
actually have a confession to make. I built Shoelace for me.
Well, yeah, but you're solving a problem, but then it resonates with people.
Absolutely, and it's a common thing here in open source. Like, I built this to scratch my own itch, and then people liked it. And in this case, that was exactly what it was. I was like, it was that same problem with the component library changing, the framework changing. So I built this once again for me, and then I just kept building it. And I was like, I'm going to use this for something. I don't know what, but I'm definitely going to use this. I'm so excited to finish this and start building something with it. And that never happened because the more people got interested in it, the more components that they wanted, the more things. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And so I just sort of got entwined in building this library and adding more and more and more. And there's components that I personally have never actually used in a project, but I know a lot of people do. And so I take the time, build it out, make it as stable as possible. Because one day, the hope is I'll be able to go back and use every single one of these components in something of my own. I just haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened with Font Awesome. You know, it was scratching, like you said, scratching that own itch. And it was like we were building, both Dave and I were at a different startup. We were, building something out. And, the way it's kind of, some of it is also fortuitous. Like you said, web component standard comes out, right? And as technologists, we like to peaked by technology. At the time Font Awesome was coming out, Retina displays were coming out.
Right.
And you're in now, and
you've got a problem.
Scalar versus graphic. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, we're going to build this. We're going to build it in a way that it will scale and it'll work. And, and it was solving our problem. It's like, wait, this is a problem everybody could be having.
Right.
Right. And let's just let it out.
Yeah, I think Retina displays single-handedly killed those 16 by 16 silk icons that I love so much.
Yep, absolutely.
So a follow-up question would be, you're doing something to scratch your own itch and to solve your own problem. You see that it's sort of catching on a little bit. Did you ever have an inkling at any time like, oh, maybe this could be my bread and butter instead of working at a large corporation? Did that ever occur to you?
Since the inception of Shoelace as the version 1 simple like bootstrap alternative, my hope, and it was totally just a reach, but my hope was like maybe this could be the next bootstrap, because bootstrap was just everywhere at the time. And I never imagined that we'd start to pick up this kind of traction with it. Yeah, I think everyone wants to see a side project succeed, but I was a little bit more pragmatic in that this is a side project. I don't have big expectations for it. Hey, maybe that's the formula, right? I don't know. Put love into it, keep at it. I can tell you my family thought I was a little bit crazy. They're like, why do you spend so much time doing this? And well, joke's on you guys now, because we're having an awesome time and we're building stuff that we really love. And it's been a really great experience to see something like that really never was supposed to be anything turn into something that so many people find inspiration and really love. And this thing is used in companies from some of the, I'm not going to name drop, but a lot of big companies in the FANG levels and everywhere in between. And it's not uncommon for me to hear from people, hey, I looked at how you did this and I really just appreciate like somebody's doing this and showing the world how these things can be approached. And I love to hear people are inspired by Shoelace.
Some people bellyache. Well, I don't know. You guys tell me whether people bellyache about sort of the culture of open source and then finding a model. So Font Awesome was able to, you've got an open source product, anybody can use it for free, and then you figure out a way to monetize it. But you also, at the same time, are expanding exponentially all of the free services that you have. Cory, do you have a thought on, are there people that bellyache that you've like gone to the dark side or something? I don't know what it's like in that community, or if there's any pushback or folks that get uptight about that.
I've been doing open source for a while, mostly smaller things, and I've read the stories, I've heard and I've seen some projects, quote unquote, sell out, and it's kind of a double-edged sword because while a lot of maintainers are happy to do this for free for a long time, it does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of energy. It's almost contradictory to say, hey, I'm doing a free and open source project, and hey, now I want to make money off of it. Because the second you bring money into it, it's evil, and you're selling out. And what I can say about Shoelace specifically is I've been pretty transparent throughout the process with a team that's also very big on open source. I can confidently say, like, yeah, we're going to keep the components open source. Everything that you have today is going to remain that way. And I think that helps a lot. So, and plus the Shoelace community, it's full of forward-thinking individuals who kind of get that. They're like, we love this. We want to keep using this. We get that you've been doing this for free. And so it's okay. We find that balance of how do we offer something above and beyond that you can opt in and pay for if you want, but you don't have to. We're not making you. We're not baiting and switching over here. So they've been pretty fantastic about that. No major complaints.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'll say with Font Awesome, I mean, that's really our philosophy. And when we worked on it, Dave was building the icon, we were all working for other people, Dave's building the icons. He'd hit me up, hey, can we add a little search to the site, all this kind of stuff. And when we decided is there a way that we could make Font Awesome our full-time job, where we don't have to work for somebody else and kind of do it whenever we have free time? Could we make this our full-time gig and really provide even more value? Mm-hmm. And so the way we view open source and, quote, monetizing open source, it's really just providing great software for people that they can or can't, they can buy or they don't have to buy. And since we're able to do this, the free set has grown exponentially,
Right.
And we provided all these other services that you can buy that I believe for a great price that provides a lot of value. But that's like, to me, the most transparent contract with anybody. It's like, listen, we're not going to sell your data. We kind of did Font Awesome before Patreon came along. So who knows if we would have went that model? I don't know. Because, a lot of people get to do that model and that's really cool. But for us, we thought it was like a pretty simple contract. You can use our open source free now and forever.
Yep.
And we love it. We love open source. We have amazing people. Jeremiah, who just constantly gives his own time to answer the community, I mean, that's what I love about open source. These people I would have never met, and these amazing people that do it out of just the love of the project, the people they get to work with, they interact with, and then on top of that, for us to have a company, we believe provide just a great product on top of it that you can take advantage of if you want to. And it seems like for us, and we even put it on our front page, it seems really clear. This is what we're doing. No tricks, nothing. We're just going to have, it's like we have Font Awesome, we have Font Awesome Pro. You just get more. You just get more if you love Font Awesome.
Yep. And it seems like that's a great model for just moving technology forward in general. People that have a love for it, that are fixing their own problems, scratching their own itch, a recognition that it's helping other people. I mean, what better way to build things and also create a model where people can continue to do what they love.
Yeah, this whole industry was built on that kind of foundation of, we're still very young industry in technology, and the early stories with Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and just building computers out of the garage and doing all this kind of stuff, Linus Torvalds and Linux, and just how open source just kind of, that's kind of almost the standard bearer when that came out. It's like, hey, you can have a Unix system for free. Mm-hmm. And you get to see all the source code, and you can contribute to it if you want.
You can fix your own bugs.
You can fix your own bugs, and you can fix them for other people. Love that, and it's just being able to and I love a world where you can have a bunch of just these little independent software vendors that solve this niche. A lot of people love icons. I don't know very many people that care about icons the way Dave, Jory, Noah care. I mean, they care about icons even more than I do. Like, these guys just love icons, and the whole team loves icons, but those three in particular, the discussions they have around, right? And that's what I love, right? You talk to Cory about web components and you're going to see a passion. That's what this stuff I love about it is because, and then you can take that and, hey, if we can make a living just providing this for people that also love the stuff, or it solves their problem. That's what I love most about anything. It's not almost software. It's almost, to me, irrelevant what we solve, because it's the people that write in to support and say, man, I love you guys. You just saved me so much time. That's why we do it.
Yep.
That's why we do it. Is just be able to solve those problems, because we've all been there. We've all worked in those jobs where just like, I mean, I had open source projects. I was like, man, I just love those guys. They save me so much time.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and to occupy a tiny little sliver of the world where people are working on things that they enjoy solving, and they enjoy sharing it. They enjoy sharing the joy of solving that problem for other people too. It's just like, if we all could be so lucky to have that tiny sliver of the world where we're all feeling really good and a lot of getting across this goodwill to other people.
Yeah.
The world would be a better place.
Yeah. I mean, I always have fantasies of like, I'd love to write novels.
Yeah.
This is my novel, right?
Yeah.
This is the way I share with the world, and that's where I've been skilled. Right?
Yeah. On the subject of sort of the love of things, when did you start getting interested in tech, and what is your background in tech?
I think I was about 12, and I was at a yard sale and with my mom and my grandmother, and I saw this cool little device. And I guess I have to age myself to tell this story, but this was in the 90s. And it was this TRS-80 pocket computer with this little book that told you how to program it. And I was like, I really, 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 really want this. So it was $7, which at the time was like $1 billion for me.
Yeah.
But my grandmother bought it for me. And I went home and I just put batteries in it and I started building these programs. And then I was like, I can change this. And it just clicked. And so from that point, I took that knowledge to one of my teachers, my science teacher, who said, hey, you can do that with this computer too. And boom, I recognized that QBasic was a thing. And so I started tinkering with that, and it just evolved. There was a little bit of a gap there when I went in the Army and did that. But when I came back, one of the things I had picked up on was learning how to put some of this stuff that we had been doing. Like, I wanted to share with some of the people. I didn't want to burn that many CDs. I really am aging myself here, but
What's
so
a CD?
Like, how can I put it somewhere where I can just point to you somewhere? Well, that's a website. And so I learned how to do that. I bought a domain, learned how to do that, put all this stuff on there. And then somebody was like, hey, did you know you can program on the web? And I was like, what? And then boom, PHP. And so it just kept trickling. Like, the more I got into it, the more I wanted to keep learning. And eventually, I think we all on the front end pivoted to JavaScript these days, but my love for PHP and everything web is really where I love programming, but I absolutely love the web.
Yeah, I think that's Ed's background too. His first dive into technology is the TSR-80, and the going even farther back, the storage on that is actually a cassette, right? A cassette tape. Is that right?
I think that's right for the TRS-80. I never had the luxury of the desktop version. I only had the little tiny pocket one.
Nice. Oh, funny.
There it is.
Okay, so the speed round. What is your favorite Font Awesome icon?
I'm going to say FA Taco.
Nice. That's a solid choice right there. Yeah. Any particular icon categories that are a favorite?
Let me rephrase the question.
Sure.
Any particular icon categories that are a favorite, and why are they the tabletop gaming icons?
Nice.
I still haven't played D&D yet. I did see the movie last night, though.
Yeah.
So
We'll solve that problem.
Yeah. I'm kind of a nerd, so it's not exciting, but the rich text editing formatting buttons, those, because I've used those specific ones before in an implementation of a rich text editor. So I love those icons. They're a lot better than what a lot of projects use natively.
Nice. And how about an icon category or a specific icon that you wish was a part of the Font Awesome canon?
Still looking for a shoelace icon.
Oh,
snap.
Ouch. Yeah. We can solve that.
Well, thanks, guys, for taking some time to talk about Shoelace. Cory, welcome to the Font Awesome team. We're excited about the partnership between Font Awesome and Shoelace. And if folks that are maybe unaware of Shoelace, where can they go to learn more information, or where can they find you? Are you on Twitter or anything like that?
I am on Twitter still. It's my only social media presence, so I hope it stays afloat for a long time.
Yeah.
But see LaViska. And if you're looking for Shoelace, you can go to www.shoelace.style. That's my best radio voice. Does that work?
That's great. That's fantastic.
Should we do a retake?
No. That's great. All right, folks, you know what to do. Well, thanks, folks, for joining us for another edition of Podcast Awesome. Thanks to Travis and Cory for coming on the show. We're really excited that Cory has joined the Font Awesome team and really looking forward to what's to come with the partnership between Shoelace and Font Awesome. And as usual, you know what to do. If you like what you've heard, please pass us on, share it with your friends, maybe give us a rating and review. As always, Podcast Awesome is produced and edited by yours truly, Matt Johnson. The Podcast Awesome theme song was composed by Ronnie Martin, and all of that slick frosting on top of the cake audio mastering was done by Enns at Lemon Productions.